Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It depends in what country and what part of the world you are. Thank you for joining our webinar. This is the third webinar in promotion IPMA World Congress that will take place in St. Petersburg in September 2021. My name is Oksana Klimenko. I'm the Vice President of IPMA, and I'm the Deputy Chair of the Program Committee of the Congress. So it's a great honor to welcome you all. Thanks for your time, and let's get started. Our topic is exciting. Today, we will speak about people in project management and what are the big changes and transformations are going on now with the people who deal with projects, programs, and portfolios. So we have three great speakers, really great experts in this topic, and I will moderate our today's meeting. So I am inspiring you to participate actively, to put your questions to the chat box, to put your comments, views into the chat box, and we will have some interactive activities where you can express your opinion and stuff. So we will start in a little bit of different order with our speakers. In our days now, today, we are all flexible and we have to adjust very quickly to all the changes that are going on around us in project management. So today we are also flexible. It's all about people in project management. It's all about changing of people in project management. And I will give the floor. I'm so delighted to invite Roberto Mori here to share his presentation. Roberto Mori has a great experience as a senior project manager with a very, very great extensive background in different industries and international turnkey projects. So the floor is yours, Roberto, please. Yeah, and again, we are waiting for your comments in the chat box, your questions to Roberto. We will have it after the presentation, this questions and answers session. Okay, we can see the screen now. Thanks.
Thank you, Oksana. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. And thank you for giving this opportunity to talk on a subject that, as my IPMA friends and colleagues know, I am very sensitive to, that is the people competencies. When we discussed about this day webinar, we thought that the communication part could be an interesting topic. But when thinking how to develop this presentation, I arrived at the conclusion that it would be nice to launch a provocation. So this presentation of mine is a provocation for all the project portfolio program manager all around the world in this new era that has already recalled once more Nick. As Oksana said, this has been my experience throughout the decades of my long career. I am a practitioner, I am not an academician, I am not a researcher, but I would like to take the future outcomes, if any, from this presentation of mine in the future, and like a kind of a starting point for a research. This idea came to me recently when I got a message from this people, Business Design Academy. They are business designers based in Italy, and the summary of their paper was quite interesting to me. Of course, the first point is that we are in a new world, I wouldn't say a new normal, because we are very far from a new normal. We are in a new area, but in the middle of a mess and in the middle of uncertainties about how and when the new normal will be and will come. But this means that we have a new, huge set of problems. Whatever we knew, whatever we took for granted, even the future we imagined until 1 year ago, today makes no sense or very low sense. But we are immersed in a number of problems. Abraham Maslow said that if we only have a hammer, everything would look like a nail to us. Now, until a short time ago, we have the way we used to do things. Certainly, we already spoke several times in our congresses, in our meetings, how to improve the way, not to use this, always the same way we used before to do things. But generally, these were a kind of driver for us. But nowadays, we cannot any longer look at the way we used to do things, because otherwise everything will look like a wasteland, nothing left to do for us. But if this new VUCA context, instead of having it in a passive way, we look at things in a new, attentive, curious way, and if we do that with the passion that would always be, let's say, a route mate for all our trips, we will find unprecedented opportunities. We are very well aware of this in every sector, because today there is no sector that is untouched by the new developments, and there is no sector that has some clearly established and accepted leaders. And therefore, there is a lot of room for looking at things that yesterday maybe were not making sense, but today they could have a perfect sense. And in this unprecedented moment, we will have a lot of opportunities to catch, to develop. So we must raise our antennas. We must look around carefully. We must listen even more than in the past. We have to put aside prejudice. And if we are able to connect with people, even more than in the past, even more than in our way of managing projects, we will find a lot of problems. But as we all know, problems mean opportunities. I remember one of the first lessons in my professional life when I was younger, and one of my teachers told me, if we have identified the problem, we have also identified, even if we don't know yet, the solution. Because the simple fact of identifying a problem opens the way to find the solution. And so problems mean opportunities. It is up to us to catch them. Just one single example that I was surprised to find in a newspaper not much time ago. This is a normal warehouse, not particularly challenging from the point of view of the organization, the management, as we can see. But what it is strange is the content of this warehouse. This is a military warehouse, and instead of weapons, there are 1 billion sanitary masks stocked in France, and they are classified as a strategic national resource. Who 1 year ago would have imagined such a development? Sanitary masks kept in a military warehouse and considered as a strategic resource. There are so many others coming from what has happened to the human mankind in the last year. And this unprecedented series of dramas and challenges create great opportunities because we have to completely reset the social organizations. And the social organization, the business organization, the national organizations require, of course, responses in real time. Responses in real time coming from what is our daily topic, of course, that is the project's execution. We are really in the front of the true globalization, because it is very clear that the SARS-CoV-2 put us in front of a situation that has no other option than going and winning, trying to win all together. Because in isolation, nobody could win, and in isolation, we all will be loser in an individual way. Like in a giant team game, the one that we are used to play from time to time during our project management lessons or practices. So the responses to these new challenges should be global, very much interconnected in the way that also Nick explained, talking about the complexity, but they would be and should be implemented individually on the ground, of course, not in a global level. And so even more than in other past efforts, we should be able to combine the high strategic level with the detective one, the here and now on the ground. And this is where the project program portfolio managers come to the fore, because our profession by default is the one that represents the more transversal skills, irrespective of countries, of culture, or business sectors. We are professional, we are very much accustomed by definition to change. We may remember how our US colleague call alternatively the project managers, the change agents. So the change for us is the life of our project. And we are members of a community that applies the same skills, the same competencies, speak the same languages, and really we are an example of a professional globalization that is already set up. For this reason, it looks to me a natural development that our community should be the natural relay to which decision makers, political makers, assign the implementation of projects on the ground. Instead of relying only on bureaucracies that are not completely aware and skilled for the tasks and for the many tasks that are in front of us. So it would be enough that we become this kind of relay? In my opinion, not. Because, of course, it would be already an historical achievement to be able to become the, let's call the operational arm of the political decision makers in our countries. But more than this, we are in front of a unique, tremendous opportunity to seize. Because the political authorities are struggling to combine immediate responses in front of the three crises that the mankind is facing. The health, of course, but also the social and the economic ones. I think that there is no country nowadays that cannot be facing one of the three of these crises. And the political decision makers must have a strategic vision of how many projects to identify and design and analyze for their feasibility. And it is under daily information through the media how very often in all countries the politicians are changing their minds or changing their views on their expectation due to the current actual development of the situation. So they, I think, do not have probably not all the competencies, but certainly not the time to think about all the possible projects in the initial phase, in the phase of their conception and feasibility. And therefore, here is where our community could play a major role, unprecedented role. For this reason, I would think to define like a call to action this application of our community competencies, mainly as regards the creativity, the passion to be used with achieving this development, in order not to waste this tremendous crisis. Let's remember what Albert Einstein was used to say, that any crisis is a blessing because it forces us to change, to analyze new opportunities and to catch them. So as a kind of new motto, we would say, I would say, remain passionate with our activities and creative in order to support the political decision makers to identify projects, not only to implement them, not only to execute, but to identify and to analyze their feasibility. For this reason, I would welcome, and I assigned my personal task to try to get in touch to you, to other of our colleagues in the world, in order to find a way how this global community could grow, and which kind of ideas and experiences in this new task, new goal that we assign to those of us who are agreeable, in order to be closer to the place where new projects are conceived, and not only where they are to be executed and implemented. I see it like a class challenge, because certainly this time, these last 12 months have shown us how to improve our communication competencies more than within our stakeholders group in the use of the new media, one of these we are using right now. But we have to go much beyond that, because we have to join the other two communities that are fighting now for the benefit of the mankind. That is the medical world. You may know, and you are aware of the fact that this year have seen for the first time in the history of the medicine a very strong, transparent, effective, efficient collaboration in the world, irrespective of the cultures, irrespective of the interests, between virologists, researchers, physicians, and the fact that in less than a year we have available not only one but several vaccines is the evidence of this globalization in the area of the medicine. At the political level also, of course, more difficult, with different interest on the game. But we have seen how many political leaders have changed their usual approach, and where necessary, there has been a kind of supranational coordination that for the first time, other than in situations like the World War, that of course cannot be comparable to the current one. So there is the chance that the community of the medical world, the community of the politician could be integrated by the community of the PPM in order to seize this chance that the history has given us as a possibility to become key players for the construction and the setting of this new era. So I would ask the concurrence of the agreement to become a privileged interlocutor of political decision makers when decisions have to be taken, and not just only when they have to be implemented. I am looking forward to comments from you and for our colleagues, our teammates in this PPPM world, whether you feel that it could be a challenge worth to be pursued, or if this idea of mine is just a wishful thinking, and better that we continue to focus on what it has been our normal activity during the recent past. Thank you very much for the kind attention, and I am really curious to receive, not only now, but also in the future, your comments to check whether this kind of effort in our community could be put forward. Thank you very much for the kind attention and for the opportunity again to Oksana and SOVNET for this day webinar.
Thank you, Roberto. It's really an eye-opening presentation, and it's, to my opinion at least, it's quite a different view on what project managers can do. It's a very interesting way of looking at project management profession. And thank you for sharing your ideas. I can see that we have in our chat box only thank you, but no questions. I have one question though. During your presentation, you spoke about passion. And my question would be, what do you think if the team members in a project do not have passion? How could you motivate them to have the passion?
That is a good question, and is a question that I always have been raising to myself when dealing in my projects, some projects that had very unusual challenges in terms of contractual relationship, in terms of risk management, in terms of achievement of contractual results. And certainly passion should come from inside of ourselves. But we can do something, talking to people through the example, showing the example. I have seen, I remember several cases in which people, young and less young, doubtful about this, or still considering the activities in that particular project like a contractual requirement. I signed a contract with my company, so I have to provide my activities and to perform my task because I have been committed with the company. And that, of course, is not what is expected of a project manager or a project management team member. And so with this person, with some kind of, I would say, more on the job training than theoretical training, with the example, and at the end, what was really paying and having the possibility to this change and this passion entering the game was being on site, on the site of the project that were being implemented, and facing the difficulties, the real challenges when one was the responsible, the first responsible, even if with some bosses or hierarchical levels above him or above her, but when put again in front of the need to solve the problem in first person, I have seen, I remember very, very few cases where this passion did not show up. So the real experience and the example by the leaders, going back to the Nick presentation, is utmost. To me, my long experience has shown that one passionate member, even if with not many competencies in terms of knowledge, in terms of acquired ones, might be more effective and efficient than more competent people, but less passionate to win that challenge.
Grazie. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
We have one comment here and one question. The comment is, in the absence of many projects, I have found that using my PM skills and competencies in political arena is my way of contributing. Completely agree with Roberta. This is coming from Mary McKinley. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
So, thank Roberto, you have at least one member on board now.
I know, even if without this confirmation, I knew that Mary would have been agreeable, because I know how much effort, how many effort she has devoted to this relationship with the political levels, and not only in UK. Sure, sure. And we have a question here. In how many countries do you think that a PM is included in the experts of COVID committee? I don't know, actually. And I am trying, I have here on my draft file an email for an assistant whom I met a few weeks ago in a Zoom meeting to the Prime Minister of Italy. But I am keeping it on hold because, of course, you know, there is a change in the government of Italy. But when the new Prime Minister will be in office, I will send to him. And I don't know whether it will be read or not. Because, in my opinion, all the committees that in all the world are looking after the identification, implementation of new projects. We were discussing before starting this webinar, discussing with Nick and Brian about only from the point of view of logistics, which kind of heavy project should be implemented just to bring the vaccine to the 60–70% of the humanity. So the project managers should be part of these teams, and not only the politicians, not only the physicians and the virologists and those experts in the pandemic, but and this is my humble and small effort. I don't know if I could succeed at all, but at least I will try. Because in my opinion, sorry?
Let's get started with this initiative.
Yeah. So those who are willing to be part of the team, most welcome.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Thanks. We have 2 more questions, and I think that we have to move forward, and then I will share these questions with you if possible. And in the follow-up way, you will provide some answers to this question, and we can post it on the website for our participants to read.
We'll be delighted and very much pleased.
Thank you very much for sharing your ideas. Thank you for participating.
Thank you for the attention.
Yeah, grazie.
Good.
And we move on to our 3rd part of the webinar. So I will give the floor to Brian Cracknell from, I'm not sure, UK, Malaysia. What will be the right place of the geographical area we're staying now at the moment? Anyhow, Brian has great experience in sustainable project management. He is the author of Communication Skills and Management Training Programs. And Brian also is part of engaging dialogue and innovative experimental learning workshops he provides. So looking forward to listen to your presentation, Brian. And the floor is yours now. Thanks. We are seeing now it's okay. Great.
Okay, thank you, Oksana, and hello, welcome to everybody. Good morning, dobro utro, dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, all the Russians in the audience, and everybody else from across the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I realize that I'm the 3rd in the sequence, so I'll aim to keep it brisk, going along and bright. Forgive the light here. I'm just trying to adjust it a little bit. My name's Brian Cracknell. As Oksana explained, I have a bit of a split personality, which I'll come to in a minute. Anyway, the title of my session this evening is People and Projects in the New Culture of Health. So I'll try to build on what Nick and Roberto have already given us this evening. So Nick was focused on leadership. Roberto gave us some insights into communication, and I'm going to be focused on culture. And the subtitle of my talk is Well Beyond, which we hopefully will see the significance of a little bit later. Now, I'll just say a little bit about myself, just to give a bit of context here, because this informs what I will be talking about quite a lot. I've been involved with IPMA for nearly 15 years now, mainly as a team lead assessor for the IPMA Project Excellence Award. And every year we run a competition where we judge projects that are aiming for the Global Project Excellence Awards. And a lot of my experience has been, and my insights are built on that. I'm also involved in the IPMA Malaysia committee in the capacity of education, learning and research representative. And should also mention that can probably guess from my accent that I'm British, but I've lived in Asia for 38 years. So this also, I think, is a bit of useful background so you know where I'm coming from, so to speak. Just by way of introduction, I think we're all pretty sure of the fact that global health at the moment faces a pivotal choice. And when we're talking about people and projects need frameworks and initiatives now that are reflecting how notions of health and well-being have been evolving. So in this session, I'm going to examine how we as project managers can position, project, and protect so that we can be more relevant and valuable to people in the post-COVID world. And I've divided my presentation up into 6 parts. So first of all, the way we do things. Secondly, I'll be posing some culture questions, because we're obviously in a period where we don't have the answers to a lot of things that are going on. I've framed several questions that I hope you'll find useful for this context. Third, we'll be looking at a very important point which was touched on earlier about heightening trust. Then we're all co-workers now, say more about that later. And lastly, well beyond and the pathway forward. I'm sure you've got some questions. I think probably I'm going to try and do this at a brisk pace. I'm conscious that I'm the third speaker. I don't want to overstay my welcome. So I will try and go through this at a brisk pace and leave room for the questions at the end. Okay, so the first point is the way we do things. Now, I've taken this as a very simple definition of culture. We could debate all day what culture means, but this is a very simple way of looking at our culture, whether it's a national culture or a corporate culture. We can say this is the way we do things around here. Now, the effect of the pandemic on health, the economy, and increasingly on human connection is very, very considerable. So how do we do things around here now? It seems to me that we're in the middle of a period where we've really got to look at this and examine what we're doing, how we're doing it, and try to move into different directions. And it seems to me at the moment, when you look at the debate about projects, about governance, about business, it falls into 3 main camps. So first of all, you hear people talking about building back. So in the UK, for example, we have Boris Johnson talking about build back better. But why do we want to build back a system, a set of circumstances that got us into this situation in the first place? Secondly, a phrase that we hear a lot of is the new normal. I think Roberto pointed out, how can we be getting used to a new normal? There's nothing normal about that. I think this just represents that we want to, as humans, to hold on to something. We want something familiar. But in actual fact, we're in a time of great disruption. Probably what's normal today is not going to be normal in a few days' time. So it seems to me that this is not really suitable for the age that we're living in either. I tend to like the last one, and this is why I've chosen these words, well beyond, because this signifies that we've got to take what is perhaps a giant leap for a lot of us, but to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves at this moment in the time of great crisis. I'll just leave this visual to sink in. I think this is one of the most powerful visuals I've seen in the last year. And it emphasizes very much that if we continue on our present path of development and the way we do things, then we are bringing disease and death in its wake. the Indian writer Amitav Ghosh has written a book called The Great Derangement. And in this book, he asks the question, are we deranged? And he says that future generations are probably going to look back at us now and say, how did you continue doing things in this way when there was so much evidence in increasing wildfires, climate change, drought, etc.? You still continue to do things the way that you've done them for several years before. And I think it's worth looking at it from that point of view. What are future generations going to think of us? And what can we do to help those future generations right now? So it's a time of very disruptive development. And it's interesting that we hear this term a lot, and a lot of people push us to be digitally disruptive. But very often those same people are not so disruptive when it comes to common assumptions or common ways of doing things, which perhaps also need changing. Now, if we look at the development of project management, there have been many, many wonderful achievements through the 1900s, 1958, 1990, 1995, lots of way stages, significant points. We've seen the invention of work breakdown structure, resource allocation, Gantt charts, etc. Wonderful building projects, the Parthenon, the pyramids, the Colosseum, and so forth. But we could say that this has been a relatively linear progression and a very static one in many ways, but not very broad in its conception. And I would like to look at today something that's shortened to COH4B, which stands for Culture of Health for Business, which is more of a way of doing things differently in a much broader way than we have been doing up to now. So it's new ways to go, new ways to grow, and very significantly, it's about creating shared value. Now let's seek to answer some questions first of all. So what is a culture of health, you're probably saying? So this comes from the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI, and it's a contribution to a framework for business reporting. GRI is most involved with sustainability reporting. So it's to do with services and tools and decision-making support. But it's also about, in its aims, building a culture of health, encouraging people to get involved with that building, and crucially to change perceptions and expectations about this framework so that it becomes the norm. So although this has emerged from reporting, it seems to me that this culture of health is an idea and a practice, a way of doing things which we could very usefully adapt to our project management efforts. And in particular, relating to what Roberto has just been saying, this could be a framework that we could usefully work within. Now, another question is, have we learned our lessons? Project management is very focused on what lessons did we learn at the end? Let's write them down and let's put them forward so that the next project doesn't make the same mistakes that we did. And Bill Reed in 2007 came up with this very interesting notion of from sustainability to regeneration. And it seems to me, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last year, that we have moved away, I think, from sustaining or maintaining. What are we really sustaining? Nothing very much, I think. And if we're looking at continuous improvement, and if we're looking at this almost constant disruption of the status quo, then terms like sustainability and even regeneration don't really give us an answer to what we're sustaining or what we're going to regenerate. And even this phrase, the Great Reset, this is something that's being used by World Economic Forum at the moment. And even our own initiatives last year with IPMA. We're calling it the Great Reset, but resetting to what? And under the sustainability banner, we need to ask ourselves some questions. Are we delivering what's necessary? Are we dealing with stakeholders, all stakeholders, adequately? And are we disrupting the status quo? And I think the answer to that is no. Now, another backdrop to what's going on at the moment is drawing again on World Economic Forum. They recently had their meeting in Davos in Switzerland, as they do every year. And of course, the pandemic was to the fore, mentioned as the #1 concern. #2 is climate change. #3, the economic crisis. But a very close #4, as reported by youth delegates, was youth disillusionment. And I think we need to be very mindful of another pandemic that is brewing, which is this youth disillusionment. We've already seen Greta Thunberg, but I think there's another wave coming if we are not more mindful of the way we do things. So that disillusionment is one thing. And then there's another aspect to this, which is becoming very obvious the more the pandemic goes on, the effect on mental health, which I'm sure we're all feeling to some extent with lockdowns, the social distancing, the lack of human connection and so forth. And even within the project management community, there was a book launched last year, at the beginning of the year, called Project Management, It's All Bollocks, written by Susie Palmer-True and Peter Taylor. And I think they mean it in a humorous kind of way. But nevertheless, I think we need to be asking ourselves, if a book like this can come out and get quite a good reception, are we really paying enough attention to the way we do things? And there's a certain number of people, a large number of people, who are becoming quite disenchanted with the way we do things in project management. Now, why does COH matter? Does COH matter? And I think the key thing here, why it matters, culture of health, is because at the moment, and certainly up until the COVID outbreak, we were subordinating health to economic progress. You've just got to look at the numbers of India, for example, is just one case. The number of people who die each year from polluted air causes, it's staggering. Whereas we need to be looking at, especially after this, if we're not to be looked at as deranged, we need to be looking at advancing health. And we're already seeing some tools coming out which are relating to this. And one that I put here is Kate Raworth's Donut Economics, which addresses very much this idea of whether we're subordinating health. And it doesn't just look at the food, the health, the general equality, social equity elements, which make for a safe and just place on Earth. It also looks at the atmosphere beyond our own borders, beyond us as humans. What are we doing to the whole environment, the whole ecosystem? And they have, Kate Raworth has come up with a very interesting tool, and there's a group called DEAL, Donut Economics Action Labs, which you can get involved in. It's got branches in many countries already. Now, what is the framework for culture of health? Now, I haven't got time to go into too much detail here, but basically there are 4 pillars to it. They talk about dealing with customer health, employee health, community health, which is very important, and of course, environmental health. This way, should be looking at this way. In project management, we've got lots of things like maturity flow, processes, tools, and so forth. A lot of us are very interested in augmented reality, artificial intelligence, but that's not what I think we should be focusing on. In terms of the cultural iceberg, Herman's model, there's the formal or the overt aspects. These are the things that we say is the way we get things done. So in here, we've got technology, we've got processes and so forth, but I'm more concerned today with the informal or the covert aspects. So these are what are the beliefs and assumptions? What are the values that underlie what we're doing. And a particular one here is caring for community well-being. And this is now vital for project success. We've seen, particularly in the Trump era, that the days of international collaboration, you've more or less got vaccine nationalism at the moment, as they call it. Can we get collaboration at the international level? Not really. Can we get it at national level? Perhaps the best way to get collaboration going is at community level. I see a lot of that going on in Malaysia, where I am at the moment. We also need to be demonstrating commitment genuinely and professional responsibility. There's a lot of people doing public relations around this, but is it really genuine? Another very important one is advancement of ethical 21st century leaders. Nick was talking a bit about leadership at the beginning, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but there's a big problem with ethical behavior, not just in projects, but across the board. Shared value for immediate action and a purpose to grow a community. And this is very often lacking. I'll give you one example from last year. IPMA in the Project Excellence Award gave 2 silver awards to 2 coal-fired power stations. Now, in the modern world, there's only 6 countries that are still building coal-fired power stations, soon to be 5. What are we saying in terms of our professional responsibility, in terms of our ethical leadership, in terms of shared value, and particularly for the community? One of these awards was given for a construction that was built in an area of the world which is already seeing migration, climate migration. Seems to me that we can't just be looking at project management in the old way. We need to be looking at it in a much more holistic way. And this culture of health is one of those tools that will give us this. So how can culture of health shape the way we do projects? Very simply, we combine a broad view of health with leadership, with project management, and culture of health leads the regeneration that needs to be done. We need to be redefining a lot of our ideas of health and well-being, repurposing project managers, realizing the potential for improving our performance, and resetting, using the word resetting, but in terms of resetting the stage, not just hitting the reset button as we do with the TV. Earth overshoot. Now, you may have heard about this. Earth overshoot measures the demand for resources in relation to Earth's biocapacity. And right up until last year, for 50 years, Earth Overshoot Day was arriving earlier and earlier. And last year, mainly because of the pandemic, because there was not so much human activity going on, it receded. Be very interesting to see what happens this year. Are we going back to the bad old ways of overshooting, to the point where we're actually using the resources of 1.6 Earths, when, yes, we only have one Earth? Or are we looking for green shoots, purpose, skills, knowledge, regenerative, responsible practices, refining or redefining our industry while reaching our goals? A foundation, reinforcement, proof. And we have this. We have a tool within IPMA, which we call the Project Excellence Baseline, the PEB. And it has a foundation for excellence, which is focused on people and purpose. It has a reinforcement of excellence, processes and resources. And it focuses a lot, very importantly, on results as the proof of excellence. And my feeling is that we can very much draw on this existing tool, which has been put together over a series of years and is based around asking questions. It doesn't seek to enforce a way of measuring project excellence. You basically ask questions to get you to the answer. And another one I've just added in the corner there, I just found out about yesterday, GAPS, the Global Alliance for Project Professionals, is just coming out with, on February 14th, a new tool for measuring leadership in complexity. It has the website there for people who are interested, but if you do want to contact me to get details of that, please do. That's another excellent tool. Now, super spreader. Yes, IPMA is a super spreader in the best sense of that word, in the way that in the last 15 years it's spread its influence for across continents, competencies, the collaboration, the cooperation across cultures. So a lot of tools, a lot of teams, but the key question here is trust. And this came up earlier as a question, and I'm going to spend a moment on this now. We need to be looking at moving away from the current culture where we don't get trust in many, many situations because of the results and the actions that we're pursuing. We are not basing them on shared beliefs or shared experiences, very simply put. This is one of the tools that we could use to look at how we move from current culture to a target culture. So heightening trust. At the moment, we're in a period of social distancing. Some people now call it physical distancing to get away from the idea of reducing the socializing. Developing dialogue, I'm afraid, looks a lot like this, like we've got at the moment. Lots of faces on the screen. It's the best we can do, but we really need that face-to-face dialogue as humans to heighten trust. And we need to be enabling engagement, and that doesn't just mean everybody looking at their phone screens. It means interaction. Now, I'm just going to ask you this one. I don't want to take a lot of time. I'm conscious that you've already been here for a while, and I'll be concluding in a moment. But there's a very good article here by Christine Lord who talks about how to repair declining social trust. And I would ask you to take just one of these actions. They're very simple, that you can simplify, you can enable, you can regenerate. Look at these 6 areas, and these are areas where trust is going down. I'll take just an example, number 2, develop leaders who work for the greater good, not themselves. How many leaders do we know of who are only in it for themselves? And this is the default model in most cases now. We have to do something to move away from this. So take a minute, perhaps tomorrow, and just look at one of these and jot down an action that you can take in your project team to simplify, enable, or regenerate in order to repair trust. All right, coming towards a conclusion. So we're all co-workers now. That means we're all culture of health workers. We're all health workers. I think that's the message of culture of health. And particularly in capturing and transferring project-based learning, those lessons learned, we have a vital role to play as a culture of health worker. And as I said at the beginning, we need to be looking well beyond. So thinking of health broadly across these 4 pillars and more, and seeing wealth differently, different perspective on what wealth is. So thinking more broadly, thinking of health more broadly, we want to increase the recognition and effectiveness of the project management profession, increasing that stakeholder dialogue, particularly with communities, supporting project management education and learning, but with a culture of health foundation. This is one thing that looks very, very promising and interesting to me. Acknowledge and develop young people's competence. We have to make an especial effort here because as we said earlier, the youth disillusionment is growing. And in particular, give space for people to meet and to learn like this today. And we need to do that for young people. We need to do this a lot for women. It's great to see Oksana moderating the session today. Maybe it could have gone a bit further. We had 3 male speakers. Maybe we could have had 1 female. Never mind. Okay, seeing wealth differently. And 2 points I want to make here. So values and value are the drivers. And we've got a lot of our leaders talking about this. The former IPMA president at the end of last year said, we need to prioritize others above ourselves. We need to show that we are what we say we are. We're authentic. We need to show professional pride, build relationships for life, go far beyond, there's that term, institutional relationships, as well as caring for physical, mental health. So this is the beginnings of a culture of health for projects. But number two, the projects we implement have got to reflect the backgrounds, the beliefs, the assumptions, and the community as a whole. And I would question a lot of our projects now, and I've certainly experienced this recently, do we share the same beliefs and assumptions in our project team? Are we really bringing something that's growing the community? Okay, and I'd just like to mention here, here's an example of a project management conference that was held in Kuala Lumpur at the end of last year in conjunction with Petronas, which is a large Fortune 500 company, biggest in Malaysia. And this used the term beyond projects. And they were talking already there about to ensure the well-being of our participants. So I think this is something that we could bring into our projects, our presentations in St. Petersburg. And I look forward to that. So what's the pathway forward? Good health is which way? This is for us to decide in our projects. I think we have a role to play. I'm about to conclude. So if you do have any further questions, we might not have a lot of time to cover it tonight, but let's continue, or let's start a dialogue. I'm contactable at this email address. Please start a dialogue with us about culture of health for projects. And this is something that I hope we can pursue in the Congress if Oksana and colleagues are agreeable to this. So just to sum up at the end, the way we do things, or perhaps we could say the way we could do things. And I've broken this down into a little code, N3R2. It's about envisioning, enabling, and engaging, but also regaining and reconnecting. Envisioning, we've got to envision a different future for people and projects. It cannot just build back or be a new normal. We have to enable not just health, the economy, but also human connection. This is vital. So in order to do that, we've got to engage people in our projects in realizing the vision, leading the change, and regenerative actions. And this is, in the end, is going to regain that connectedness, which is so important and which we're missing at the moment in the pandemic, and get people to reconnect. And all of this, of course, down a road which goes well beyond. Thank you very much for joining us. And I'd like to pass back to Oksana now and open up to any questions that you might have. Спасибо большое.
Thank you, Brian, for your insights in the new culture of health. It was very interesting to look from the other side a little bit. And thank you for enlarging our thoughts or way of thinking in terms of the project is not the project only. The project has a great impact on other social and environmental aspects of life as well. So it's a very interesting topic, and of course we can continue it at the St. Petersburg in September 2021 at People Stream. And everybody who is very interested in this topic, you are welcome to come to the People Stream and participate in more events on that topic. We have some comments and questions, so I picked up a couple of them. The first question is, Brian, your words resonate very strong feelings with me, but I do not feel able myself to formulate many concrete questions. One thing though, one key discipline of project management involves stakeholders. You talked about future generations, which are of course very important stakeholders for us today. However, we lack mechanisms of dealing adequately with the interests of this group of stakeholders. Any ideas from your side, comments?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, to the first part, I would say, yeah, I mean, I formulated this as a set of questions, basically, because I'm also on a journey with this. I mean, I was very involved with sustainability practitioners, but I was always asking, hang on, doesn't seem to be any sort of concrete way in for a lot of people, for project managers maybe, but not for many others, right? And the same with regeneration. Regenerating what? There's a lot of very good people involved in that, but where's the connection to it? How do we make sense? How do we actually get things done out of it, right? And so I've just completed a course, actually an online course, which is called Building a Culture of Health for Business. And if you want to get some ideas about how to engage, there's a very good, lot of good material on that. And like I say, the Global Reporting Initiative are the ones who have started this. I've actually got in touch with them to see if we can begin to do some programs which come from the reporting side, because it's initially designed to be part of a reporting framework. But I am convinced that this can be something that we can activate. So I'd say don't worry about, you know, not being very sure yet. I'm sure as you think about it and you challenge yourself and think about how you can apply this to your projects, some ideas will emerge, and I'd be happy to sort of discuss that further with you. But I think the key thing is we've got to engage much more in dialogue, and I mean real dialogue, asking questions to people and really listening to the answers that they give to us. And I think this is a technology that is very ignored at the moment, the living technology of dialogue. We're forgetting how to communicate. I think Roberto was touching on this, but the communication skills have been very often referred to as the soft skills. Well, they're not. They're the new hard skills now. Again, if you look at the World Economic Forum, they've come up with a list of the top 10 most in-demand skills for the future, and 8 of them are soft skills, only 2 are tech, and there's no tech skills in the top 5. So I would say carry on your thinking. Don't worry that this is a growing area. There is a sense of urgency, but for that, I would say try to get involved with a community of people, no matter how small it is, and try to get those ideas moving and into practice. That's why I've given that, maybe that chart there will help a little bit. And there's a reference there to the article, to the whole thing about trust. But start with some concrete actions and some things that are rooted in your culture, in your community. I mean, Russia's got a fantastic, fantastically receptive society for things like culture of health. I'm sure it would be something that would catch on very, very speedily in the project management community. But get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to further that dialogue with you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Lawrence, for putting this question. And one more question, we still have some time. So that is the question about changing the mindset. So this is from Takat. Can you please advise how to change the mindset of the decision makers which are looking for profit rather than people and the environment?
Okay, the first thing is stop using that word mindset. Okay, my company is called Language Works, and I very often get the reaction, as Oksana knows, when I say I'm Brian Cracknell from Language Works. Hey, Language Works, what's that got to do with projects? And my answer is everything. And this is a good example. I've been listening to many people talking for the last 20 years about, oh, well, we've got to change the mindset. I think even the word, it's not a dynamic word. It's got set in it. That means not moving. Try the word mentality instead. So, and that has got a broader meaning to it as well. So when you encounter people like this, and they are there in large numbers, let's not run away from it, try changing the words that you use, perhaps. And secondly, I think when you look at the reality, and this is why going to look at the sustainability reporting is very informative, because it's now got to the point where there are many companies doing very well and spectacularly well by not just focusing on profit. The course that I've just done is full of examples from the US and elsewhere of companies that have taken on board community initiatives, going just beyond healthcare for their employees, really sincerely offering their products and services in line with what customers want and can use. And there's a number of ways that you can do this. And I would say, if you really do come up against this sort of blockage, is just carry on trying to do what you can do within your own organization. Definitely the sand is shifting under our feet. This pandemic is going to move things. It already is moving things along that were already in motion. So the fact is, if somebody is still in their company, standing there saying, I'm not going to listen to any of this, we just need to make profits, well, you won't have to wait too long to see that that company is not going to last very long.
Thank you, Brian.
So that would be my answer to that one. Yeah.
Thanks so much. We still have some more questions, and as we agreed with the previous speakers, I will send also these comments and questions to you. And having in mind, please reflect on them, and then we can post it on the website as the answer to our participants. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I see that Eric has something to say. We have just 1 minute.
Hi, Eric.
Please. Yeah.
Hi, Brian. So just a quick comment on the last question on profit. So as this is related to values and belief, we should not believe that we can change belief from the outside in the person. So the only thing to do is actually to make disrespect of environment cost. So to put tax on it and whatever. So this will take effect.
Yeah. I mean, if I get your point, yes. I mean, you can't ignore that that is a deeply rooted belief for a lot of people who, I mean, we have this here in Malaysia. There's a lot of, particularly in Chinese family businesses, for example. There's this reluctance to accept that the landscape, if you like, is changing. However, I would say that if you continue to try to make changes within a group where you can make a difference, and I think whether the change comes quickly enough to really avert a lot of the potential disasters is a moot point. But I think we've seen, and probably one of the optimistic takeouts we've got from the pandemic is that it has moved along, particularly with digitalization, for example, particularly with care in the community. That's another one that's been noted in many places. Collective action. There is a lot of hope for projects and for businesses that are moving in that direction of a culture of health already, without even knowing the term. I mean, but I would say to people who are interested in this, do Google that culture of health for business. There's a very good online course for that, building a culture of health for business. And there's lots and lots of ideas in there and references for where you can go to get more evidence and more tools and activities that you can put to use. But yeah, just to come back to Eric's point, that is very powerful, that whole under the iceberg point of it. And that's why I focused on that today, values.
Okay. Thank you so much. We started a good point, and we can continue with developing this topic and make more aware of this approach. Okay. So I think that we are done with our agenda for today. That was a great webinar, great pleasure to meet all the participants. Special thanks to our speakers who contributed a lot, and special thanks to our organizers who provide this technical support, and Constanta Bodea, who was leading the people stream, and she is still our people stream lead in preparation for the World Congress in September. I kindly invite all of you to register for our next webinars. The next one will be on the 11th of March, and it will be about methodologies and approaches. We will speak about some technical stuff, theoretical stuff, and how different approaches could be combined in a different kind of projects, programs, and portfolio management. So welcome to our webinars. Once again, thank you so much, and let's stay in touch. On 11th of March, the next topic, methodology and approach in promotion our 32nd IPMA World Congress project management. And of course, hopefully we'll meet each other in St. Petersburg in September at our Congress. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day, evening, morning. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Oksana, thank you.
Thank you.